Cold wind moved softly through the streets of a small forgotten town. The night was quiet, almost too quiet. Inside an old foster home at the edge of the city, a little boy sat alone near a tiny window he could never see through. His name was Michael. He was only 10 years old. But Michael had never seen sunlight. Never seen the moon. Never seen colors. Never even seen his own face. He was born blind. To most people, blindness meant darkness. But for Michael, it was much more than darkness. It was waking up every morning and reaching his hands across the wall just to understand where he was. It was counting steps everywhere he walked because he was afraid of falling. It was hearing children outside laughing and playing while he sat silently in his room, wishing he knew what their smiles looked like. Every single day felt lonely. Michael never knew his mother. The only thing he knew was what an old nurse once told him. She used to sing to you before she passed away. That sentence stayed in his heart forever. His mother died when he was still a baby. His father disappeared before he was even born. No birthday hugs. No bedtime stories. No one waiting for him after school. Just silence. The foster home workers were not cruel, but they were busy. Too busy to notice the quiet little boy who spent most nights awake, staring into a darkness he could never escape. At night, while the other children slept peacefully, Michael would sit on the floor beside his bed and whisper small prayers into the emptiness. God, are you really there? Sometimes his voice trembled. If you can hear me, please don't forget me. There were nights when he cried so quietly that nobody heard him. Not because he wanted attention, but because he simply wanted to feel loved. One evening, rain tapped softly against the roof of the foster home. The lights suddenly went out. Children started screaming in fear. But Michael sat still in the darkness, because darkness was the only thing he had ever known. One of the younger boys asked him softly, "Michael, are you scared?" Michael paused for a moment before answering. "No." The little boy asked again. "How do you stay so strong?" Michael slowly lifted his head and whispered something nobody ever forgot. "Because when you live your whole life in darkness, you learn to search for light in places other people never notice." That night changed something inside him. For the first time, Michael realized maybe his life still had purpose. Maybe his pain wasn't meaningless. And there was one thing that always made him feel alive. Music. Whenever Michael sang, the world around him disappeared. The loneliness faded away. The fear became smaller. When he sang, he no longer felt broken. His voice carried emotion so deep that even adults stopped to listen. Workers at the foster home sometimes stood outside his room at night just to hear him sing softly to himself. One woman cried after hearing him. She asked him one day, "Michael, where did you learn to sing like that?" Michael smiled gently. "I think sadness taught me." Months passed. One afternoon, the foster home television played a commercial about a famous talent show where ordinary people could perform in front of the world. The announcer said, "One stage can change your life forever." Michael sat frozen. Something moved inside his heart. That night he could not sleep. He kept imagining what it would feel like to stand on a real stage, to let people hear not just his voice, but his story. Finally, after hours of silence, he whispered to himself, "I want to go there." But fear quickly followed. What if people laugh at me? What if I fail? What if nobody cares? Still, a small part of him believed this was the reason he survived everything. Weeks later, after many struggles and paperwork, the foster home arranged for Michael to audition. The day finally arrived. The theater was enormous. Crowds filled the seats. Bright lights covered the stage. Contestants nervously practiced backstage. But Michael could not see any of it. He only heard footsteps, voices, movement, applause. A staff member gently guided him toward the stage entrance. "Are you ready, Michael?" His hands were shaking. But he nodded slowly. "Yes." The announcer called his name. The audience clapped politely as the small blind boy walked carefully onto the stage with a white cane in one hand and a microphone in the other. The judges smiled kindly, unsure of what to expect. One judge leaned forward. "Hello, sweetheart. What's your name?" "My name is Michael." "And how old are you?" "I'm 10. The audience melted at his soft voice. Another judge asked gently. "So tell us, Michael, why did you come here today?" Michael became quiet for a moment. Then he spoke words that instantly changed the atmosphere in the room. "I came here because singing is the only time I don't feel blind." The audience fell silent. Michael continued softly. "I've never seen my mom's face. I've never seen the stars. I've never seen myself in a mirror. But when I sing, it feels like my soul can finally see." Some people in the crowd were already wiping tears from their eyes. Michael took a deep breath. "Before I sing, I just want to say thank you to God. Because even though He took my eyes, He still left me my voice." The theater became completely silent. Then the music began. Michael closed his eyes, though they had never seen light before. And he sang. His voice was pure. Painfully pure. Every lyric carried years of loneliness. Every note sounded like a prayer rising toward heaven. People cried openly. One judge covered her mouth, tears falling down her cheeks. Another judge lowered his head, completely speechless. Michael sang about pain. About hope. About darkness. About God never abandoning him. And somehow, every person in that room felt connected to him. By the final chorus, the audience was standing. Thousands of people applauded through tears. But Michael didn't fully understand why they were cheering so loudly. He simply held the microphone close to his heart and whispered one final sentence. "Maybe one day in heaven, I'll finally open my eyes. But until then, I'll keep singing with the eyes of my soul." The entire theater exploded into applause. The judges stood up immediately. One of them walked onto the stage, hugged Michael tightly, and whispered through tears. "You are not forgotten." Michael smiled. For the first time in his life, he truly felt seen.